to wonder, blazing up Birmingham. Now we're going to go to Kent. Now we're going down to Kent, brothers and sisters. And we got our brother, Dr. Kheftusa. Forgive me, my brother, Kheftusa. A powerful brother. I knew him from way, way, way back in the day. But you see, brothers and sisters, many a time we appreciate our brothers and sisters in US, in stateside, but we don't appreciate that we have got brothers and sisters here in the UK who are specialists in African and Black history. Brother Kheftusa, are you with us, my king? Brother Kheftusa, are you with us, my king? Jeez. Yes, sir. We got our soldier there. We got our soldier there. How's it going, brother?
Yes, sir. It's all good, brother. I must say, beautiful show. The singing hyped me up.
Let the sister know, man. Let the sister know.
Yeah, the sister was smashing. She was smashing it.
Wow, wow, wow. So, brother, you're based in Kent, I hear, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow, wow, wow. And obviously, I've known you for decades now, man. And you haven't skipped a beat. So, please, brother, before we go into your section, let us know a little about you. You're a doctor. A doctor of what, man? What makes you a doctor? Let us know.
Okay, a doctor of political science. Yeah, political scientist. Now, I got to say, brother Tawanda, again, that's a brother. We all soldiered together. And I had to say that when I was getting my PhD, I met brother Andrew and many other brothers and sisters, and you really helped me, sir, in terms of keeping me tied into my own cultural and African center.
Yes.
And that is why, as Tawanda said, I rate you as somebody who has always protected me and always advised me. I remember one time we was at a lecture and I was, it was actually a talk in Greenwich, and I was firing, and you said to me, brother, you got passion, but remember, sometimes you can tell the truth in a different way. And so my thing today is that I'm very blessed to know you, sir. I'm blessed to know
you,
brother Tawanda, brother Kevin Muhammad, all brother Minister Michael Muhammad, all of these people, brother Leo. You know, we did some great work in Birmingham.
Yes.
And I have to say that it is those who stick to the truth that are able to bring that truth from one generation to the next. And that is our job, to bring the truth from one generation to the next. And you say the hidden truth, that which is hidden must be made manifest. And that is what we have to do today. We have to manifest the teachings that come from the inner well of who we are as Africans.
Brother, you're on fire tonight. Brother, I can tell already, brother, you are going to be blazing tonight. And in fact, we've got some of the sisters say, boy, in skin nice, brother, don't be coming on the platform just chirping.
Oh, no.
Don't be coming just chirping, beloved. So you got a powerful spirit, brother. And you know, even with your PhD in political science, right? Because you've managed to do what many other doctors can't do, which is maintain your grassroots focus, your love for the common people, your love to be in the voice for the voiceless. You've used all of your academia in the world of making sure that this world is a better place, especially for those who are oppressed. So, brother, I'm going to step back now, King.
Yes,
and we want you, because this, as the brother's getting ready, you can share screen when you're ready, King.
Yes, sir. Can I just say one thing, sir?
Yes, sir, of course.
Okay, so I just wanted to say something about the message for today.
Yes.
Is complete, not compete. And I say this because I'm somebody who studied Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Malcolm X, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And one thing that we have to understand, we need the message to the Black man and woman, whether you say Black man or African, we need to understand that message. I come from the position of message to the Black man. And so that's when we look at the term Islam, I, self, Lord, and Master.
Gee, now you sound like Tawanda. That's one of his lines, man. Go ahead.
So why I say that is because we have to understand that we may come from different perspectives, but in truth, all contradictions are resolved on higher levels of consciousness. So if you want to understand, you need to go to the next level of consciousness so that we're not dividing. So what did I say? I said we need to complete, not compete.
Brother and sisters, to the 300 plus of you on this platform, I think already the brother hasn't even started his breakdown yet. You can see exactly why I've asked this brother to introduce himself to this platform. And I said to the brother, today is only day one. I want G-men around me. And this is one of my gangsters in academia, okay? And there's only a few, but this brother's ranging and roaring from the UK. Brothers and sisters, please put some ones in the platform for our king, our brother Kheftusa. Brother, we thank you. And brother, I'm going to shut my mouth now. Teach us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, a couple of things before I start. Welcome. You found yourself in a peaceful place, and we wish for you blessings without number. Whenever we speak, we must always come from a place of peace. And I want to say to you that I'm going to bring some foundational knowledge today. And if there's anything that I say that impacts you, then I apologize. But at the same time, I'm going to drill down into a perception of truth. And what I want to say here is that I am not here to persuade you of anything. People will believe what they choose to believe. And with that, let's move forward. So the discussion tonight is looking at the decolonization of the African mind. So let's start off. And what we need to see now is that we need to what? Break the chains. So we need the sword to break the chain so that we can break the chain from our conditionings. What are conditionings? Conditionings are thinking patterns and behavior patterns that keeps us trapped as the so-called slave. So what we need to do is to resurrect the original man and woman. And that is what I want to talk about today. But this is foundational knowledge. So one of the things that we need to understand here is that the consciousness of Africans needs to be reassessed and repaired. That's the first thing we have to understand. So whether you perceive yourself as an African or not, that's what I said. So the question is, where are we and who are we? We have to look at those questions. Where are we and who are we? But at the same time, we must also know that our thinking and behavior is flawed. How could it not be? We have been in a ma'afa for over 500 years. That's not my subject tonight, so I won't even explain that. But the point that we need to understand, as was said earlier, is that we have been stripped and left deaf, dumb, and blind in the Western Hemisphere. But God comes to rescue those who know themselves. So I'm talking about colonization. So generally when people look at the colonial system, they focus in on Africa. Now, when we talk about Africa, which is our motherland, which is also the home of civilization, we have to understand that the colonial system has its roots in centuries of enslavement and oppression. We got to understand that, meaning that the African, both in Africa and in the diaspora, is not really an African. And that is why the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey had to come and say to us, Africans at home and abroad, and that consciousness has still not been breached yet. In other words, we're still searching for who we are. So what is colonization? Colonization is viewed through the lens of a territorial conquest or invasion, where the invader seize power over a territory. So that's the basic level we learn. Colonization is a move to gain territory. But my question is, what kind of territory? Because often when we engage in that discussion, one, we don't recognize it's not over, and two, we have a mistaken concept of what the territory is. So let's dig deeper into that. So for an example, the Berlin Conference, which occurred on the 15th of November, 1884.
So brother.
Yes, sir.
brother, you're causing trouble. You've only just started. No, brother. I'm not even laughing with you, man. You got man already saying, please bring back Dr. Kheftusa as a keynote speaker. Sister and Ariane says, talk the truth, my brother. Sister Bianca says, breaking the chain. Adrian always speaking with love. Sister Karen saying, yes, preach to beloved. I'm not gonna say nothing more, but I'm saying you're already blowing up, King. Carry on, soldier.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You have me wired for a second. Okay, so most of us know about the Berlin Conference. And one thing I need to say before I go on, what you're hearing from me is what came from the teachings of African people. What you're hearing from me, it has been taught to me by African scholars and African people. That's an important thing to say. I'm a byproduct of the African liberation movement. So let's look at this. November 1884 ended on the 26th of February, 1885, which amounted to the carving up of Africa, which was in fact a form of genocide on so many different levels. So that's how we tend to look at colonization, but that's not enough. That's the standard approach, but we don't do standard. We go beyond standard, okay? So when we look at decolonization, we tend to frame it through the anti-colonial struggles waged against European nations during the 20th century. That's how most people talk about it. Like, for example, the outward independence of the Gold Coast in 1957 and the creation of Ghana. Why did I say the outward? Because African nations are still not independent. Show me an independent African nation on the continent. You can't really see it. So we are not truly independent. So we're gonna take ourselves on this journey through the wisdom of Carter G. Woodson, who wrote The Miseducation of the Negro. If you haven't read that book, you need to read it. He also came up with Negro History Week, and that's where the Black History Month, etc., comes from. So the wisdom gleaned from the majestic thought processes of Carter G. Woodson, who explored the miseducation of the Negro, which was published in 1933. Who is the Negro, though? Are you a Negro? Who are you? That was my central premise. Who are you? Now, for me to answer that question, I got to go to specialists. Brother Minister Malcolm X and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, I've said here, dead from the neck up, the Negro. They say that the word Negro comes from the Latin root, but the word Negro, Malcolm taught me, came from the word necro. And when the language changed from Latin to Spanish, the C became a G. Now, necro means dead. So therefore, the Negro is one who is spiritually dead. Now, most of us today don't identify ourselves as Negro, but it's important to understand that many of our parents or grandparents did. So now we say that we're Black. But the key thing that I want us to see here is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X taught, know thyself. But if you understand that term, you can go all the way back to ancient Kemet, not ancient Egypt. Egypt is the work of scholars who don't understand ancient Kemet. And Dr. Ben said that the Kemetans came from the foothills of the mountains of the moon where the god Happy dwells. And that was in the Great Lakes region in Tanzania. So what I'm saying here is that we must be in search of a knowledge of self. That is the degree to which we must strive for perfection. Now, our second genius is Professor Amos Wilson, somebody that I met and personally used to talk with and someone who mentored. Now, Dr. Wilson wrote a book called The Falsification of African Consciousness. Now, why is that important? It's important because our identity has been falsified. Even if you say the word Black, unless you really understand the root knowledge of your Blackness, that isn't even enough. Even if you say the word African, unless you understand the root knowledge of that term, that isn't even enough. You got to go beyond the terms and dig into the nature of who you be. Excuse my ebonics. So Dr. Wilson also taught about the concept of self-hate. So I'm going to touch on some of that today. The concept of self-hate, the resistance that sometimes we have when we are given knowledge that does not come from the standard definitions that were given to us as children. So we have a lack of knowing. See, I put a motor on here. What motivates you? What motivates your behavior? What drives you? What emotions move you? So we have to understand, number one, Africans, wherever you find them on the planet, have been traumatized. That's number one. There's no way around that. We have been traumatized. We have engrams in our head that make us respond and act in ways that are against our own self-interest. Number two, self-negation or self-hatred. In other words, during the period of enslavement, we were programmed with behavior patterns that would create negative outcomes and still do. Why? Because as brother said, we have not done the work of healing. Number three, we are ahistorical. Most of us as Africans do not know our history. And many of us say, I don't even need to know my history. Give me some money. I don't need history. So we are ahistorical. But what we need is a key knowledge of self. There are two frames here. There's knowledge of self, which is the base, at the base of the knowledge pyramid, and there's self-knowledge. Not what I'm going to talk about today, but understand that. So the question is, we must reclaim our identity. Whoever you think you are, that is not who you truly are. Because within inside of you, there is a God that speaks to the higher levels of your consciousness that you can only reach when you do the work of resurrection of the original man and woman.
Woo! Teach, black man.
So Amos Wilson drew on the work of his predecessors and recognized that one's perceived and actual identity plays a significant role in determining their behavior. So here we have a picture of the god Osir, not Osiris, the god Osir, who is a major icon image, but there's a science behind that. We have to understand that our people were scientists. We were knowers. We knew. And that is what we need to return to. We have to not be afraid of the things that we created. So let's drill back a little bit. In the 1960s, Malcolm argued that land was the key resource. But Steve Biko said the most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Now, I want to really make sure we understand that. Sometimes we lament and we say, why don't more brothers and sisters stand up? Many brothers and sisters stand up, but before they even get to the mainstream society, they got to get past us. They got to get past us. We often engage in behavior patterns towards one another to our own detriment. So we need to understand that the mind of the oppressed is a weapon in the hand of the oppressor. So now we're looking at this territorial conquest, colonization from a mental standpoint. So what am I saying? I'm saying without a knowledge of self, you are not even a people. We don't know who we are. We don't understand who we are. And I'm not saying that I do, but I am saying that we must walk on that pathway to self-knowledge. And to do that, we need wisdom. And what is the first act of wisdom is to say that I do not know. And then to say, I need to know. So let's look at the work of Sheikh Anta Diop in his book, Civilizational Barbarism, a must read. He outlines the factors that qualify a group to be called a people in possession of a working cultural identity. Let me say that again. He outlines the factors that qualify a group to be called a people in possession of a working cultural identity. Diop pointed to three factors because often you hear people say, well, is there a black community? Well, is there? Are we a community, or are we a group of people? Are we a group of individuals? Now let's see what Diop says about people. I shouldn't have used people in that context, but let's see what he said. In order for you to be a people with a cultural identity, you need one, a historical knowledge. You must know your history. That's number one, base level of Sheikh Anta Diop's concept. Two, linguistic factor. What language do you speak? Because language, there's a thing called psycholinguistics. In other words, every language that is spoken has a worldview and a psychology. English cannot even express the full array of an African understanding. It never did, and it never will. Then you've got to have a psychological factor. You have to be tied psychologically to your identity. Remember when you were a child, you heard the story of the ugly duckling. And the duck thought it was ugly because it was a swan. So we have to understand that. The ugliness that we see in ourselves comes from a projection from other people. And often the projection may even come from within your own family. That's the degree of damage that we have. So people who lack a practical knowledge of these three factors should assume that they are a colonized population. So I'm telling you, Black people, we don't have a clear systematic understanding of our history. We don't have a clear linguistic factor going on, and the psychological factor may be or may not. So the question is, are we a people or a population? That's what you need to ask yourself. So that is the key, civilization or barbarism, because from civilization is whence we came. But barbarism is where we have arrived in many ways. And we see it on the streets of the major cities in the Western Hemisphere, because we are lost from a true knowledge of who we are, a knowledge of self. So I want to talk to you about frequencies. There is a quote in a book called The Kabbalion that says, when the ears of wisdom are open, so fall the footsteps of the master. When the ears of wisdom are open, so fall the footsteps of the master. What I'm saying here, what is your frequency? Your frequency will determine how close you can get to the truth. Remember that the truth can manifest itself as a sword or a feather. It can cut, the truth can cut, or it can be light, depending on your disposition towards the truth. So what we need to understand is that we are shaped by and shape our world via the vibrational frequency that we send out. In other words, your thoughts send out frequencies and vibrations. Just like a radio has a receiver, it can send out and it can receive. That's you. When you have thoughts that are negative, then you know what happens. When you have thoughts that are positive, then you know what happens. But it goes way deeper than that. But what I want us to grasp is we are a frequency. So what does that mean? It means that those who can inject or seed their ideas into your consciousness hold the keys to mastering both your character and the parameters of your behavior. Yes, I said that. So the war, the territory, the colonization that I'm referring to is not about land. It is about your mind and your spirit. That is the war. That is the plane that you need to learn how to both control and direct. So in many ways, when we talk about colonization, we're talking about land. But you have to understand, in relation to creation, the greatest creation on the planet is the man and the woman. And guess what? When we look at that historically, you know that you are the original man and she is the original woman. And you must always remember that. So what we have then is alienation and falsification. We are alienated from who we are. And I want us to think about that. Culture, language, names. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, what? They took our names, our language, and our culture. That's what Diop has just shown you. Names, language, culture. So that means you're alienated if you don't understand your true name, your true culture. So colonized through language, and I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to deal with this in a kind way, but it's important. Christian names. Now, if I really had time, but I don't, we could look at where the three major religions come from. They come from the Happy Valley, not Nile Valley, the Happy Valley. So the Bible. Here's my question. Why is Christianity filtered through the language of English? Remember, there are over 125 versions of the Bible. Why is it filtered through English? Islam through Arabic. Why? And who were the original Arabs? Because if you study a book by Drusilla Dungy Houston, the wonderful Ethiopians, you'll find out that the first Arabs were Black, and it can be shown in no limit of time. Second, the next point is African spirituality. What is it? Are you Black? That means it's African spirituality. What is the nature and culture connected to African spirituality? And the languages that you speak reflects power relations. The reason that you speak English is because the English conquered the world. That's why you speak English. So you got to understand that power is seen through names, language, and culture. And we have not understood that words have power. Even if we read the Bible and we are told in the beginning was the word was with God, and the word became flesh. So they told you in Genesis that the words have power, but we don't understand that. Think about it. Very touchy subject. We will note the emotional reactions that surface when we as Africans or Black people or whatever we want to call ourselves discuss names and the varied reasons we provide in order to continue using names that our ancestors were forced to take. Now, whether you find what I just said offensive or not, aren't we here for the hidden truth? We never came off of the good ship Jesus with these names that we have today. And we have to ask ourselves, if the name wasn't important, then why were the names taken? If the languages weren't important, why were the languages stripped down from us? So the question is, we need to think about how we name ourselves, who names us, and how we name our children. Even if we have an issue with that, let's think about the names that we give to our children so that we can resurrect the mind of the African God within the heart and soul of the children that come through us. So what I'm saying here, African spirituality, but still in Africa, when we are being spiritual, whose languages do we use? Whose books do we refer to? Do we know the books of our ancestors? Are we clear on who our ancestors were? Are we clear that we created the first universities? Are we clear that we developed writing? Metu Neter, the word of God. And remember that the words are written in you because the temple is in you. You are the temple in man and woman. So free your mind. If your history, religion, and cultural values were not created for you, if your history, religion, and cultural values were not created for you or by you, then any real dispassionate analysis of your conscious reality would see that it is an imperial imposition. So you don't have to argue, because here's the thing. When you're looking at the message to the Black man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that is different because that was created for us. When we're looking at how we used Christianity to free ourselves, yes, that all of that is true. But at the same time, are we afraid to delve into the so-called spiritual systems that were preceded the ones that we're into today? I know this is heavy, but we got to be prepared to look at the reality. And I'm coming to an end. Ask yourself how the Bible became fastened to English when the geographical locations presented in the Bible took place in Africa, or in what is properly known as Northeast Africa, not the Middle East. So how did you get the names? that you got? How? If not one person from Europe was mentioned in the Bible, I'm not even gonna finish that. Because sometimes it's better to let people's mind flow for themselves than for me to be the offensive person. So as I come to a close, Oxford Dictionary, let's look at definitions. So me and Brother Andrew having a conversation, we get to a loggerhead. I say, oh, I'm going into the Oxford Dictionary, Brother Andrew. I didn't say I'm going into the dictionary of Timbuktu, or I'm going into the dictionary of the University of Djane. I'm not going into any dictionary that came from Africans. I'm going into Oxford. So if I go to the Oxford Dictionary and then I come back and tell Brother Andrew, look, Brother Andrew, it has to be true because Oxford said it. It means that your center of gravity mentally is in Oxford, not in Timbuktu, not in Kemet, not in Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, not in not in Monomatapa, Zimbabwe, but in Oxford. European culture has managed to colonize most people's mental universe, and those they exert they exert a superordinate level of control over your thinking and your actions. So when you reach for that book to tell your mother or your brother or your sister, this is what Oxford said, then you have just shown what paradigm you are currently in, because you didn't go to the dictionaries that were made by your people, but you said, well, where are they? Much of what we have done was destroyed. So conclusion, and I apologize for going through it fast, but I stick to the remit, and it's good to learn how to speak in that manner. So for some, the truth is a virus. The truth is a virus, which must be avoided. Some of us don't want to deal with the truth. The truth is the sickness, and it is the truth and the truth tellers that must be purged because the truth is bitter. In other words, what I'm referring to here is that many a time when people come and they tell us the truth, we're not prepared for it. So now we attack the person who brings the truth because we can't handle it. We have to stop doing that. If we disagree with somebody, you don't need to be disagreeable. And that is why I said it is not for me to come and teach and show you. It is for you to pick up a book and become your own teacher. We must learn to be people that research and study, and Google is not enough. So remember that irrespective of your level of consciousness, there is a bit of Negro in all of us. Hence, we must face and go within. You got to face yourself. You got to go within to cut with your conditionings. We have been conditioned, some of us, to be Negroes, niggers, and blacks who don't have an understanding of who we are. We must break the chains. We must break the conditioning. We must find ourselves, and we must learn to rebuild the African family. Oh, you said, why? Why did you say that? Because since the moment that we were brought to the Western Hemisphere, the Black family has been under attack. And no one anywhere outside of the teachers that have come to us have ever given us the remedy to systematically reconnect the body of the African family. And if you understand the Assyrian drama, the God who comes and is tricked and cut into 14 pieces. And what does Orset, the mother, do? She comes back and finds all the pieces of the original man, puts them back together in order for us to be at one. So what is the message? We must be at one. And that oneness starts from within you. Be one with you, then you can be one with me. Peace. Hotep, Hetep, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Shalom.
Brothers and sisters, oh, brother Kheftusa, beloved, but please, you don't know, King, you don't know. Yes, brother. I mean, I ain't got time to read out the comments. Brothers and sisters, if you love what this brother was saying, if you believe that this brother is teaching the truth to our people, put down blouse and skirt. Just put it down in the chat room. blouse and skirt. Let the brother know that his blouse and his skirt fits him good. Cheese and bread. Brothers and sisters, brother, pure blouse and skirt in the chat room now. Pure blouse and fire backside. Jeez. This is the platform of hidden truth, the right knowledge platform. Brothers and sisters, this was Dr. Beloved Kheftusa. Dr. Beloved Kheftusa. This is one of our doctors in the UK, based in Kent. I'll say that one more time. This is one of our doctors, a doctor of political science, and he's teaching like no other doctor teaches like. You understand that, brothers and sisters? And he has to pay a price for teaching the way he teaches. Understand that.
Can I say one thing, sir?
Pays a price. Come, King.
Yes. So I want to make it very clear that what I'm teaching is what I've been taught. And I've been taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad through his work, Malcolm X, Minister Farrakhan, Ryan Nefer Amen, Professor James Smalls, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Marlana Karenga, Asa Hilliard. So I see myself as someone who continues in those traditions. And the last thing I wanted to say to us is this: do not allow religion to separate us. And let me explain what I mean by that. Religion is the base level, but every single religion has what we call a esoteric aspect. So in Islam, there's a thing called Sufism. The Sufis take the base level religion to a next level. In Christianity, it's called Gnosticism. And in Judaism, it's called Kabbalah. So what I'm trying to say here, and remember what I said all contradictions are resolved at higher levels of consciousness. So if me and Brother Andrew don't have the same jacket on, it doesn't mean that we can't come together and have an understanding. That is the key that we must see. Do not use religion to separate yourself. Bring yourself at one, like the body of a Seer, which means bring the divine intelligence together so that we can live in the harmony and the peace and the understanding. That is my message. But I want to say what I brought you today is cultural science and a little bit of African spirituality.
Brother, I mean, the chat line is still on fire. I pray that whilst you're getting your feet massaged by your wife for working so hard, I pray that you have time to read the comments, brother, because brother, I mean, the chat room is still on fire. It's still ticking over. Brother, question to you now, online in front of 360 of us now. Will you come back to do a main speaker on this platform?
Yes, sir. I will come back.
Word is bond. Word is bond.
Word is bond, God.
Yeah, one of our great political scientists in the UK, our brother, our king, Dr. Kheftusa. Please make some noise again for our big brother. Brother, we salute you and we thank you again for your hard work.
Thank you,
brothers and sisters, what a show. And we haven't even got to the main speaker yet. As I said,